our November Curriculum Committee meeting. We apologize for the delay. Welcome to the community watching on the stream. Welcome to the community in the room. And we have special guests and committee members and our liaisons. So I will introduce Rachel Gilliar and Sandra Alvarez, Board of Ed members. Dr. Passy is here, and our liaison, Dr. Feeney, our special guest, Dr. Bear, and Beth Javelin. Thank you for joining us. We are here to discuss secondary data, much like we did last month for K-8. So we are headed into the second phase of our students' experience here in Port Washington. So we're looking forward to this conversation. Thank you, Dr. Feeney.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We will switch over to the presentation. So this is, as was mentioned, this is a second part of our district data presentation. In October, we presented the data related to K through 8, primarily elementary school data, but it was all of the 3 through 8 New York State assessments, also the K through 8 iReady data that we had. So certainly there was some of all the elementaries as well as some middle school data presented last month as well. This is a focus on our secondary data, which will include the Regents exams, which do involve the middle school to a certain extent, as well as certainly the high school, where the vast majority of today's data are located. As we go through this presentation, we're sharing this really to highlight how our secondary outcomes, our initiatives, both reflect the progress towards and the alignment with our district priorities. You're going to see a shared commitment to excellence, professional growth, and equitable opportunities that prepare all of our students to thrive, which of course directly supports our vision and our theme this year of engage, empower, and grow. You'll see progress towards academic, personal excellence, professional learning for faculty and staff. We're going to highlight achievement, access, and readiness across all of our student groups. We're going to connect the data to our district priorities, once again, of engage, empower, grow. And we're going to focus on, preparing every graduate for college, career, and a robust, healthy civic life. So we're going to start with the middle school. Ms. Javin's going to present her middle school data.
Since my computer's not
That's okay.
Sorry. All right, so here's Weber. So 2 of the Regents courses that we offer in 8th grade are Algebra 1 and now Earth and Space Sciences. So Algebra 1, in 2022-23, we had 107 students. As you see, it grew, it was at 27%, and then in 2023 to 24, it grew to 37% of the students taking Algebra 1, which was 152 students. And then we're pretty flat for the last, 2 years after that, 152, 146. So we're about 37% of our students taking Algebra 1. In Earth Science, in 2022-23, we had 147 students taking Earth Science. That was 37% of our students. And then the year after, we had 162, so again, a big jump to 40%. And then last year was the first year that we offered Earth and Space Sciences, which is the new course by the state. And we had 152 students taking that, which is 36%. So, and then this year we have 146 students, which is 36% of our 8th grade. Comparable to other districts, other middle schools in Nassau County, Regents rates vary from 40% to 95%. So we're in the ballpark of it, but as I think you've all heard, we're looking to increase our numbers in acceleration. The following slide is about our results in the two courses. So in both courses, we've had 100% mastery. So in algebra, we had 92 students take the exam, 100% received level 5s, and we've had that for all the years down the road. For earth science, so I'm jumping down to the bottom for a little bit, we had 24 students. Only 24 students, is that number right?
Maybe 124, maybe there's the one that got cut off.
Okay. So all of the students also received mastery, 100% was above level 3, where 79% was at a level 4. And in 22-23, 134 students took the test. 100% of the students were again at mastery above a level 3, where 89% of the students were at a level 4. And then in 23-24, 147 students took the exam. 99 were at percent was at a level 3. 91 was at a level 4. Last year was the first year we gave the Earth and Space Science Regents exams. 133 students took the test. All of them were above a level 3, and 62% was at a level 5. The state did change the curriculum. They did change the way the exam was given. It was definitely a much harder exam that was given. So we still had mastery and did very well on the exams. The other exams that we do give are, the New York State exams as well as iReady, and that data was presented to us last time we were at this meeting.
What's the difference between showing it as a level 4 and then the tops are level 5s?
It only went to level 4 previously.
Okay, got it.
As New York State changed exams, the newer exams are graded on a 5-point scale rather than the 4-point scale. So the older earth science exams were only through 1 through 4.
Got it.
which
Did
is
I
why
space
we
out when you said
split.
that? And
No.
it's quite possible. I
No,
think.
no.
Okay, sorry.
No, I did not mention that. That was a good question.
Thank you.
So, we have outstanding performance on the Algebra 1 Regents exams. Even as we've grown and more students are taking it, we continue to do well. In 2025, 60 more students took the exam compared to 2021, and we still maintained 100% mastery level. And then a district goal, like I said previously, is to prepare our students to be more successful in algebra and earth science courses and give them more pathways for when they get to the high school. Right.
So many computers. So looking at Schreiber's data, we'll cover graduation data as well as some post-secondary outcomes and our assessment data. So we like to start with a little quote that every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. So you'll see that we're really taking a system-wide approach to improving the outcomes for students because we need to make sure that we're looking at the input, whether you're talking about instruction, access for students, and really designing the outcomes we're receiving. So we're taking that big approach. Laying that foundation, we're looking at improving student outcomes in 4 big areas. We're striving for excellence in what our expectations are for students. We're really taking a deeper look at strengthening instructional practices within the classroom setting. And it's important that we are expanding the access and opportunities to ensure that we have demographics that are representative of our school community in those honors and AP level courses. And you've heard me talk about improving the graduation rate. We have certainly improved the graduation rate overall. Now we're looking to maximize it. So every cohort of students will be a little bit different, but we're looking to ensure that every one of our students has the best pathway to success as possible. And that really takes into account how we can be earlier in the process for at-risk identification, for those early warning indicators that we need to keep our students on track. We are going to look at a lot of data, so I'm starting with an executive summary that can really hone us into where we're going. So if you look at the last 4 years, our graduation rate has now jumped to over 97%. And again, every cohort is a little bit different, but this has been through early intervention and data-driven monitoring from when students are transitioning from middle school to high school. Looking at our advanced regents designation, that is the more challenging of the the diploma types that we offer, which requires the additional coursework. So this is the highest that it's been over the last decade. And when people say, we focus on the students at the lower end, we focus on the students at the higher end, the kids in the middle really get lost. This is showing you our dedication to our students who would be, as people describe, in the middle. So how are we ensuring that they have access to those geometry and algebra 2 mathematics courses? They have a sequence, whether it's in world language or music or art or technology, and how are we ensuring that they are having the more advanced science courses as well? So our rate last year was 78.4%, again, the highest that we've had in about a decade. The next thing that the state is also rolling out are these seals. So we have the seals of civic readiness that you'll see the numbers that we've grown from 8% of our graduates to now 50% of our graduates have achieved, and we are looking at even having a higher percentage for this graduating class. The one that we recently added was the seal of biliteracy, and that would be students who speak English and another language would be eligible for a seal of biliteracy. Again, comes with criteria that you need to accomplish in both areas. That grew from our first year at 14% to last year at 28%. And this is really showing that more students are earning multiple credentials, showing that they will be ready for their next step, whether we're talking about college, career, military, whatever their next step is, they're getting preparedness with that deeper level of understanding. This is also a precursor to the new graduation measures when we start to talk about one diploma type and having multiple seals. Our AP performance, we again had a record high participation with 775 students in grades 10 through 12, taking 1,951 exams. We have a few different passing rates that I talk about. One of them is that 90% of the students passed one or more exams. We also have 88% of the exams that were taken had a score of 3 or higher. So those would be the two different scores. An important point is that 77% of our seniors last year took at least one AP course at any point in high school. So 77% took one. And with the next statistic that you'll see through here is that 70% passed at least one. So you do see a little difference in those numbers, and we can speak through what it means to get a 1 or a 2, but the exposure to the coursework is extremely important. We also have another data point that the class of 2025, they averaged 4.72 exams over their time in high school. So that would be the number of exams taken divided by the total cohort number. So it would be an average of 4.72. Talking about Regents exams, which are still those exit exams required for graduation, we still are experiencing a disparity in our subgroup population, but this is something that we track really closely. So when you talk about our students with special needs, you talk about our English language learners, we are looking very early on and tracking the information with how they're doing within the courses and using really targeted supports to help get students what they need in preparation for the Regents exams. And in some cases, if there are multiple attempts required to take the Regents exams, ensuring they have what they need after. So talking about next steps, we are always looking at our students as individuals and making sure that they have what they need while setting up a system that can support on a larger scale when you're talking about 1,600 kids in a building. We are preparing for the new graduation measures that will roll out by cohort, which includes one diploma type, those seals that will be in different competency areas, and preparing for the financial literacy and climate education requirements from the state. And we are absolutely engaging in conversations on a regular basis about what are the on-ramps for students. If they didn't accelerate early on, what are the chances for them to still participate in honors and AP level coursework throughout our high school career? Because we do have students who develop at different times, and maybe they weren't ready right away, but they've worked really hard, whether it was a maturity that they needed, some skill and understanding gaps that they had at the time that we have now addressed. and they're ready to engage in that coursework. So finding ways for students to enter at different points in high school. Notes on the data. I'll go through this really quickly. A reminder that our graduation rate, this is the percentage of students who earn their diploma, and the cohort is based on when they start ninth grade. So even if you have a student who doesn't have enough credits to move on to the next grade level, they are still attached to the same cohort. So for example, our class of 2025, they were the 2021 cohort. So you'll hear people mix those back and forth, but really that cohort is important. It's the fall they started ninth grade. And that advanced designation rate, this would be the percentage of students who did the additional coursework required for the advanced diploma. We don't need to go through each of these. If you had questions about what is required to graduate, we have the number of credits that are required, as well as the Regents exam. So you see that middle column would be the 5 exams required for a Regents diploma. On the right-hand side, the far right column would be the additional requirement for an advanced Regents designation. And that includes either a world language sequence or another sequence. Looking at post-secondary outcomes. So thinking about, we want our students to graduate and be successful. We want them to have a path once they leave high school. So looking at how Schreiber compares to the county, you can see for each of those years what the attending a 2-year university or college, a 4-year university or college, and then we have the military, job, and trade. So this past year, we had 90% of our kids who attended a 2 or 4-year school, and 10% of our kids went into the military or directly into a job for the job market, or went to a vocational, a trade school. So we've been hovering right about that 90%. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is that we do address our students who are not college bound for whatever reason. It isn't because they aren't necessarily prepared to attend a college or university. It's because they are making the choice to do something other than a college path after high school. So this goes back to knowing our individual students, what the needs of our community are, and helping our kids be successful in the path that they choose. So we do a number of things in addition to our college fairs. We call it our Choose Your Future Fair, where students can see what other opportunities lie beyond high school. Maximizing graduation rates. You know, this is one of my favorite topics. So this goes back to our systemic approach. So this is more than just when a student is in the spring of their senior year, we go, oh my goodness, we're short a half a credit in this area, what are we going to do? We start monitoring progress of our students from the moment that they come into high school. So who is coming in with high school credits already, who was struggling in middle school and may need some additional support when they come to high school, because we already know that's a big transition. Then you add the content and academic component where students now need to pass these Regents exams and pass this coursework in order to move on to the next grade level. We are really using those early warning indicators, and that starts even with a quarterly assessment. The grade level assistant principals go through every single student in their grade level. We're looking for students who have 2 or more Ds or lower. That's really put us on the radar very quickly that we're starting to meet with students, we're starting to meet with counselors and with teachers to say, what does this child need to be successful? Once we get beyond the first quarter, we're looking at where has there been a change? So if a student was getting an A in quarter 1 and is now getting a C, what's going on? Something has changed. Is it related to the content? Is there something going on with that student? We're looking for those indicators that somebody needs help. We also have, in addition to academic support, we are looking at, we call it the Child Study Team, CST. We look at some of the other social emotional components. So if we know that something is going on with the student, we get it on the team's radar to monitor that closely and intervene when we need to. So that school-wide approach really aims to look at where each individual student is at the time, evaluate what is currently happening for that student, and identify if an additional intervention is required, and then to monitor that through data. How are we doing? How do we know that they are improving, not improving, what needs to happen? That district-wide approach, we're looking to build on successes. So it's a strengths-based approach. Where are students successful? How can we build upon that? And then even speaking about middle school to high school transition, tightening up the articulation process that we're doing, because We are one district, we're on one campus. Moving from that side of the campus to this side of the campus, we don't need to completely start over. If we know that something helps our children be successful, we want to start with that information right off the bat. And having our assistant principals loop with the students as well as the counselors helps us get to know our kids at a deeper level, and they are attached to that one person who's almost like a case manager, and they're the one-stop shop for what's going on with a student, how can we help? We have a number of supports that we have to help our students get to graduation on time. When I say on time, I'm looking at that 4-year cohort graduation rate. Our goal is June of that 4th year, so that would be the 2021 cohort graduating in June of 2025. We do have, according to the state, until August of 2025. That is not something that we strive toward, but that is an area that if a student needs some additional coursework or additional exams, we have the time to do so. So when students are transitioning from middle school to high school, for that 1 year, we have the FLC as the nickname for the freshman learning community. This would be a 1-year support that does give students in that class a smaller setting with meetings that happen among the team and work closely with the family to ease that transition. If we have students who need a longer term set of supports, we do have the STEPS program, which would be for students at additional courses in 9th grade and then removing some of those supports each year until they get to their senior year, hoping that we get students to self-advocate, be successful in the larger community, and transition back into general education classes. Twilight, this is our 4th year with
Yep.
Twilight. This is the after-school program that starts at 3:30. We have a maximum of 4.5 credits that can be earned. Typically, you're talking about math, science, English, social studies, PE, and you can do PE or health. You can't do both, just with the limitations on time. So we have students who only do STEPS, and they're earning 4.5 credits because they need that different setting that is one hallway of a large school with fewer kids as opposed to a building that is buzzing all day long with 1,600 students. We have students who do a combination of a partial, they come in the afternoon so they can get additional credits, and a full Twilight. We have students who do a full day during the day and full Twilight if they have credits that need to be made up for on-time graduation. That means our kids are in school from 8:05 until either 6:30 or 7:30, depending on the day, and that is a big commitment where we support students. They now receive free breakfast, every single child, free lunch, every single child, and we're able to get kids dinner as well. So if kids are in Twilight with us, they are provided dinner. So again, that is a big commitment where we work closely with the student and the family. I can give an example of a student last year who was very, very motivated to do this, to get back on track to graduate, and he was successful. We had the whole team during the day and in Twilight providing the carrot to get him through. We were absolutely on top of, he looks tired, he needs a little bit more support and encouragement. How can we build him up right now? Because this is important to him. He wants to do this. He's being successful and just needs a little extra love. So this is where we have all eyes on our kids to make sure that they can get through and be successful. That's a long day. And we do have students who may come during the school day, and even approaching, for example, the January Regents may need some additional support in English instruction to take the English Regents. They can come in just for that support preceding the exam. So basically, you can hear that if a student needs something, we find a way to make it happen. There's still a system in place, but we can respond to individual needs. Summer school, we do run through BOCES. That is a credit recovery program exclusively. So it would be if a student had failed a course, they can, at any point in high school, they can come in during the summer and make that up. Regents exams are offered in August. And we have BOCES where students are spending half a day outside of the building, and this would be the career and technical education. So this would be juniors and seniors who are learning about HVAC. They could be doing cosmetology, they could be doing barbering, culinary. These are the programs where students who may opt for a more vocational track are spending half the day out of the school and the other half of the day fulfilling graduation requirements. we get incredibly positive feedback from the students who are in these programs, really enjoying a hands-on experience to learning something that they can use immediately after high school. Some of these programs do include the required certifications to go directly into the job market. Graduation rate, so we're talking about the 4-year 2021 cohort. This was the bubble class. You've heard me talk about it for years. There were 449 students in this cohort. Typically, we're about 400. Our graduation rate is 97.6%. It will round to 98% on our school and district report card. And you heard me say that 78.4% of these students graduated with a more rigorous advanced designation diploma. So they had the additional mathematics, the sequence, and the science. You see the last, 6 years here, how we have had a pretty steady increase in our graduation rate, still jumping around between that 97, 99%. And our goal as a district is to remain above 97%. I know the data can be pretty dense here. When I look at these numbers, 1% is about 4 kids. So last year with the bubble class, it's higher than that, but with a 400 person cohort, when I see 1% increase, I see an additional 4 kids who have a chance at a better future and a life for themselves and their future families. So this is very meaningful to the work that we do at the high school. On the right-hand side, you can see those endorsements and seals. So with honors means that you have an average on the Regents exams required for your diploma type of 90% or higher. Mastery in mathematics and mastery in science would only apply to the students who have the more advanced diploma type, and that would be a minimum score of 85. So not an average, but they need an 85 or higher on 3 exams in math and in science, so you can get one or the other. And then the 2 seals at the bottom, you can see the seal of civic readiness. Again, this was the bubble class, so you see 223 kids represents about 50% of the cohort. Big increase. We are so proud to have more students engaging in this level of work. And the seal of biliteracy, still relatively new. We had a nice jump to 28% of our kids. The seal of biliteracy in particular, we have a number of our English language learners participate. So they have their native language they're already speaking. Sometimes they speak more than 2 languages, so they're able to complete the coursework in their native language as well as in English as they're taking already. So it's really embedded in the coursework that students are doing. It's our chairperson for world language and our director of E&L working together to make this accessible to our English language learners. Here you can just see the history. Unfortunately, Nassau County and New York State have not yet released their official graduation rates, but as that becomes available, I will certainly update this. I check every day. Unfortunately, it's not posted yet, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So you see that we've had a nice steady increase. When we compare to the state and to the county, we do expect to be higher than the state and the county. One of the things that I like to look at is sort of the trend. So how is our trend comparing to the county and the state? And you'll see some fluctuation with the advanced designation rates because the Regents exams had so many exemptions that students were eligible for. And you can say the same thing for the graduation rate, that if the barrier was that Regents exam, where, our school resource officer. So when you no longer have those exemptions, you do have the Regents as a barrier for some of our students to graduate. And now that we don't have the special appeal where students could graduate with that 50 to 64, you see some changes in what the graduation rates are. So these are just important data points for us to consider and to keep looking at, but it does change what we're looking at. So our students who are in the 2021 cohort, you know that we've been tracking early on. We do have disaggregated data that I had more specifically on here, but with the low numbers of students, we wanted to make sure that students couldn't be identified.
We can pause
Yeah,
if it's
it's
killing you
okay.
to not
It's
know
okay.
what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, so should you want to know more disaggregated data about our students with disabilities or the demographic ethnicity breakdown, We have all of that because I actually keep the list of students when the expected graduation rate, if they're still enrolled, the things that they were missing, who their counselors are, so we can really go through and have those conversations. And as I said, the assistant principal loop, so we always know who the assistant principal is with that grade. And then you can see that we did have 3 dropouts and the grade level they were when they dropped out. So it's always the hardest to see our seniors drop out because they're usually so close to that finish line. And even when they're not the current seniors, we do keep track. So I only have the class of 2024 here, where we had 4 dropouts. We didn't have anyone still enrolled after June, but should we have students who are still enrolled, we keep track of them and where are they going, what are they doing? If they're not within that 4-year graduation, when do we expect them to graduate? We keep track of them. It just doesn't go into our report card for the 4 years.
I know these are really small numbers, so it's hard to extrapolate anything from really small numbers, but is there something to be learned from like when they drop out?
Absolutely. So even here where it says dropped out in 9th grade, because I know who these students are, you can't drop out at 14 or 15. So that would already indicate to me, and I again know who the student is, that this was someone who was overaged for their freshman year and undercredited. So the reason that they would still be in 9th grade is that they didn't get the 5 credits they needed to move on to 10th grade. So when you start to look at dropping out early on, typically you're looking at someone who is not being successful in school because of multiple failures across courses, that they're not going to the next grade level. Without getting into too many details that would identify who the students are, you look at attendance as being a significant barrier to being successful in class. You look at sometimes with our English language learners being able to access the language. Sometimes you look at those external factors. So when you have some of our students who do help to support their family, while as adults we can see that bigger picture of, do you want me to unlock that? The bigger picture of being a high school graduate will allow our students to ultimately be more successful in life, make more money, and be able to provide for their family. Sometimes those short-term pressures of, I need to work right now to help support my family and pay the rent, really overshadows what we can do at school. Other times you talk about students who have interrupted or limited education, coming in undercredited and overaged, and mathematically they cannot get to the finish line of graduation with the number of credits required. So our goal at that point is how can we get the skills that our students need to help them be successful as they can be? And ultimately that might lead to a GED and we can help them on that path. So this is when I talk about we have a system in place, but we look at individual students and how we can support them. So if you have questions about more specific individual things, we can absolutely talk about this. One thing that I provide, I think it might be the first thing I provided Dr. Posse, was a list of the graduation rates 2025 with every one of these students listed individually. The students who didn't make it to the finish line in June but were anticipated to graduate in August, there were 4 students. All 4 of them graduated as we had expected, and what the issue was for each one of those students. So we track that very closely. Did that answer your question without giving too much information?
No, it did, and you really danced the line very well, because I know we're talking small numbers, so there's a
Right.
limit to how much you can say. But you did answer the question, which is like, you're looking at it very closely, and there are reasons, and we understand the reasons, and we're trying to ameliorate whatever it is.
Absolutely. And one thing that changes from year to year would be the students in our life skills program, so the INVEST students who do continue on in school with us until 21. I'm so proud of that, and I love having the INVEST class in our high school. That would be counted in as continuing to be enrolled, but appropriately so. So when we talk about those individual students, they should still be here. They are still enrolled in our school community, and it unfortunately looks like they are non-graduates.
So that's what I was, does that factor into our graduation rate
It
then?
does,
Okay.
it does.
So how many are there in each of these years, right?
Well, that depends because our life skills program is very, very small, but when you talk about this particular cohort, I do know the students who remained in there.
Okay.
But not all Invest students stay past 12th grade, 12th, age 17th of a 12th grader. Some may,
They work with PPS to make that decision. In my time here, I have seen that all of our students do take advantage of that to stay until 21 because there's a nice transition. I know Dr. Allen can speak more to this, but it's not that they're just sitting in the same classroom having the same experience
no.
that they've had for 4 years. They start to do more work-based, go into the community internship where they're learning skills to help them be successful and transition between high school and what happens after they're 21. And those programs are really, again, based on such individual students. And I can certainly speak to you about the students that we've had since I've been at Schreiber and the kids that we have now. So it's very individualized and changes from year to year. So it depends on the age of the kids in the class.
they'd only be factored in once in a cohort.
They would only be factored in with
one
their cohort
number, yeah.
when they started
When they
ninth
enter ninth
grade.
grade, because they don't
They're-
enter they don't
they're
enter
in
at the
that
same
cohort.
age
Yeah.
necessarily.
I mean, it seems to me like, I like the goal of us wanting to be at 97%, but it seems to me the most important part is actually that we know what's happening with whatever that percentage is between 97 or whatever and 100, and it seems like you do, right?
You know my goal will always be 100%.
Right.
All the time. Knowing that we're dealing with human beings who come to school, some of them with a lot more baggage than I think most people would ever realize, we make sure that we are maximizing the success of that student, whatever that may be. My hope is we get them all across the finish line. I will say that having our INVEST program in the school, even if it does change what our graduation rate is, doesn't change the fact that I love having our INVEST program at the school.
But I think
Right.
the important point is that for the larger community, if there's not an understanding of what those 3% look like and why, there could be critique and or,
But it's not that the
Judgment of-
district is failing.
Right.
If we're at 99%, but we know what that 1% is, and they either are appropriately still there, or we're supporting them to figure out how to get to a GED, or what the next path is.
And even if we do have a student who indicates they want to drop out, and they're beyond the compulsory age of school, it's not okay, you're dropping out. It's, hold on. Come in, let's talk. Trying to get the parents to come in and talk, figuring out what a plan could be, what it would look like, whether it was twilight, a combination, summer school, trying to figure out what that plan is, because our high school students are old enough to advocate for themselves, and if they aren't on board with the plan, they're not going to come. So we have had, and even with the 3 students from last year, multiple attempts at trying to get them to come back to school, including one student who did drop out, came back, tried it again, and did end up dropping out again ultimately. But there was an attempt there to say, come back, let's try it, let's figure something out, and we'll continue to do that. Any other questions on this one?
No, that's very good.
So a little bit deeper into those endorsements and seals, we talked about the rate that we had for honors and mastery. So if you did need a little refresher on that and wanted to see it in writing, there's everything. Honors, again, is the average, whereas mastery is a minimum score. You see our rates over the last few years. We are, honors, you'll see some drop here because when COVID was causing those exemptions, we weren't offering the exams. In lieu of using the exam score, you could use the score for the course. And that would help you determine honors mastery in mathematics and mastery in science. So statewide, you'll see some variation there because now the exams are coming back, we don't have those exemptions. A little bit more about the seals, I did talk about it, so I won't stay on these slides for very long, but if you wanted to go back, the biliteracy is English in at least 1 or more language. The seal of civic readiness, this goes through our social studies department, and in addition to coursework, you're looking at a project that would show that you had a deep understanding of civics or social justice. Here you can see the seal of civic readiness we started offering in 22-23, that was brand new. Seal of Biliteracy, we started in 23-24. You see a big jump in the numbers that we've had. As we settle in, the students know more about it. We're really encouraging kids to pursue these avenues. Ultimately, you look at 2 columns for each one. You have to get points in column A, points in column B, and it's a nice way that students have a little bit more choice over how they want to earn those points. And as we look to that one diploma type with competency areas, we'll look to, until we get more information from the state, we'll look to kind of mirror how that process works. Because again, we do need a system to be able to track how potentially 1,600 kids are working toward these seals and endorsements, but an individual path for students to be able to have some choice in their learning. So with AP, I have the overview of the scores, and when you see the rest of the appendix at the end, if you want to go exam by exam, we save that for the end, so you don't have all of it front-loaded at the beginning. We had 775 students take 1,951 exams in May. We do offer 33 different exams, and 90% of our students passed at least one exam. As I had mentioned before, the graduates this past year, so that's the 2021 cohort, had an average of 4.72 AP exams per student. So that's the entire cohort, not just of the students who took APs. Of the students who took at least one AP, that average goes to over 6 exams per student. So that equity and excellence number is a pretty important number. So this would be the 70% of our graduating seniors last year passed at least one exam, whereas 77% of our students took at least one exam. So the difference in that would be, you might have had a student who took an AP course and exam and got a 2. That wouldn't be the passing of 3 or higher. So at Schreiber, we do have students in grades 10 through 12 eligible for AP courses. And if you enroll in an AP course, you must take the exam. There are a few exams that it would be 2. So AP Economics, for example, you take both macro and micro. And when you talk about Physics C, you take both the electricity and the mechanics exams. So you're taking both. Otherwise, it would be 1 exam for the course. You can see the AP courses available. This year, we have 7 AP courses that sophomores can take. Not all 7 will fit in your schedule, but you're eligible to take 7 different AP courses. In 11th grade, there are 12 courses that you can take, and in 12th grade, there are 27. So there's quite a variety. Some of those are duplicated. So AP Statistics, for example, you can take in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. That would be a duplicated number here. And as I had mentioned, the APs are scored, so a 3 or higher would be passing. They're scored on a scale of 1 to 5. You can see the participation rates over the last few years. Last year, we had 62.1% of our students in grades 10 through 12 take at least 1 exam. This is one of my favorite slides. You can see it's 2 different slides because Canva doesn't let me do the animation, so bear with me here. On this left-hand side that you see on the screen, this is the overall building demographics. It does include our 9th graders, it does include our ungraded students, so those would be students in our INVEST program. So this is the entire building for the 24-25 school year. Now, when you look on the right-hand side, because we've only had 10th through 12th graders take the AP courses and exams, it's only 10 through 12. But if you look at the breakdown, we have a very similar breakdown, which is why we are recognized by the College Board with the AP Access Award, because within the parameters, we are mirroring the overall demographics of the school. And that really speaks to the access and equity of who is taking our exams, who is really being encouraged. Yes, we do have prerequisites, so you can't come into your first mathematics course and take AP Calculus BC. We want to make sure that you're prepared for it with the coursework along the way. We do have basic criteria for honors and AP courses. That would be, a B+ in the course and a teacher recommendation. However, we are going to be communicating this really, really transparently and clearly We do have a waiver process that is not to discourage students from taking honors and AP courses. It's really to help that conversation. So what is the score that you're earning in the prerequisite course? Where are you? What is your passion? What things do you do outside of school? So what I say is that our kids can take any honors and AP course that they want, but maybe they can't take all of the AP and honors courses that they want because they might be a 3-season athlete, maybe in the play, in the musical, and they have so much going on. The balance is really important to us as a school. So we want to make sure that if a student perhaps is getting a C in the prerequisite course and wants to go to the next level in an honors and AP course, they absolutely can. We want to talk to the kids and the families about what are the expectations for that course, including reading outside of the course, including the quizzes, assessments, projects, and things that they would be required to do, and what other things are they doing outside of school to ensure that they have enough time, that we are finding the balance of challenging our kids without stressing them to the point of being dangerous. So these are the conversations that we're having. You'll see a difference in the program planning guide moving forward, and really in our honors and AP night, having these same conversations about here's where we want to encourage you and help you grow and make sure that you are healthy at the same time. Here is the history of AP exams with the number of exams administered. So these would be kids who are taking more than one exam. BOCES calls this the participation index. So this is the number of AP exams taken that spring divided by the average number of students per grade. So you see that our participation index is 4.74. We are absolutely above the county in the amount of exams that are taken per student at Schreiber. Here's the one that's really important to me, and data points I talk about with our faculty. If I look at an exam and we have every single student take that exam and earn a 5, my next question is, what is the barrier to getting more students in this course? Because even if they're not getting a 5 on an exam, there is tremendous value in students participating in rigorous level coursework. So we take that participation rate, and quality means that they're passing. So how many of our students are passing and participating in the exam gives us the rate of 4.17, and that is significantly higher than the county, where they're talking about the participation in AP courses also with their passing rate is 2.99. So we are having more students participate in more exams and passing more exams than the county. And you can see this is 88% is our exam passing rate as opposed to the number of students who passed one or more exams. So that would be the difference between that 90 and 88. Here you can see College Board has a number of different distinctions for scholars. So a scholar would be having that passing rate on 3 or more exams. We had 118 students last year. That honor means that you're getting an average score, so not a minimum, an average score of 3.25 on 3 or 4 exams. As distinction would be 3.5, and that's the minimum score of 3 on at least 5 exams. So you see how they take that minimum score still. You have to be passing at least 4 exams, at least 5 exams, and then the average is 3.25 or the average is 3.5. And so that total number of scholars that we had was yet again a record number of scholars. So having more students be successful on more exams is what is reflected here. Opportunity and access. Here, if you needed a quick overview, they're scored on 1 through 5, 5 being the highest score. Now take a look at that far right column. If you see a score of 1 would be the lowest score, only 2% of the exams taken, that's 31 exams total, had a score of a 1. That is remarkable. So again, we're opening up access and having a higher success rate. So if you look way back in 2021 school year, there were 195 students get a score of a 1, and that was with 300 fewer exams taken. So even for our students who are scoring a 2, we're really moving that needle from that score of a 1, pushing up to a score of a 2, And still, that was only 10% of our students as opposed to the 20s and the earlier years shown here. So we are really pushing that number from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. So we are having more success with more students taking more exams. And if you want each breakdown, I have just the passing rates for each exam here. If you want to see that score from 1 to 5, it's in the appendix in the back. Calculus AB, you see that we had a higher success rate in 2025. Our Calc BC numbers going from 80%, 70% to now we're at the mid-90s is remarkable. Macro and micro were consistently strong. Remember, the kids in AP Economics are taking both of those exams. English language, we have increased tremendously. So I think 3 times the number of students while also increasing the passing rate. And now English Lang and English Lit are meeting the graduation requirements. They're not an elective. And you see Physics C, there are 2 exams. Students are taking both of those exams if they're in Physics C. We had a marked improvement in AP Latin from 13% to 58%, really trying to focus in on great instruction that was happening in the classroom and making sure that it's aligned with what the assessment is at the end. So that's a lot of our conversations when we are having these data meetings with departmental supervisors to say, without judgment, what are we seeing? Where are the places that we can grow and improve, and how can we best meet the needs of our students? Here, more data, so if you wanted to see what our average scores were and our passing rates are as compared to the state and globally, we do perform higher than the state in most areas and certainly globally. Look at Calculus BC, so our average score was a 4.2 as opposed to under 4 for New York State and globally. So these are certainly points of pride that we have here. Computer science, 3.52 and 3.49, significantly higher than the state and global scores. Another place that I'd really like to point out is AP World History Modern. It's the last one on this slide here. We've had tremendous enrollment. So about half of the class ends up rolling in AP World History. We do offer AP Euro. We are one of the few schools that continues to offer Euro and World History. So even with a high level of enrollment, we're seeing great success with an average of 4.04 is the mean score, and a 94% passing rate, significantly higher state and global mean scores and passing rates.
Are most of those students 10th graders, like first-time AP students?
Yes, so for AP World, they are 10th graders. AP Euro, you can be in 10th grade, but say you didn't have room in your schedule, you really, really love social studies and you want to take it in 11th grade, it would just be an elective. We do have a rare case where sometimes people really love social studies and take AP Euro and AP World at the same time.
Very rare.
Either way, the students are, and if they're in 10th grade and they're taking the global history regents exam, so whether you're in global, world history, or Euro, you still end that 10th grade year in the global regents.
It's just, I think that's a really important thing, that this is their first outing with an AP, and they're really doing very well.
Yes, they are, consistently.
It's a big number.
If you prefer it in a bar chart, these are bar charts, because with Canva, why wouldn't you if you could? But this is a nice way to see it on one page, and I think it's really powerful when you see where those lines are and it stands out with, let's have a conversation, what's going well, what do we need to really focus on, and how can we best help our students?
Those light blue lines really are very striking on the bar chart.
And
Brian, call that color? What is that blue color called? Brian called it something.
Or blue.
Or blue? Or blue.
So Regents right now are still the exit exams for high school. Just to simplify, I put everything on one page for the overall passing rate, so these would be the level 3s. And you can see where we compare to the county. The state numbers are not available yet, but again, when they do become available, I'll be adding in the state percentages here as well. A few important things to note, as you saw from Ms. Javelin, Algebra 1, if you take Algebra 1 at the middle school, those are not reflected in the Schreiber number. So this would only be Schreiber. And that as we expand the opportunities at the middle school to enroll in Algebra 1, that will sometimes impact our mastery rates, our passing rates, and these would be the students who might need additional support to be successful in the class. So the Algebra 1 and Earth Science will always be a little bit different because we take a population of students out of participating that at the high school when they take it at the middle school. So these are the mastery rates. You see again, Algebra 1 is lower because the accelerated students have already taken that at the middle school. So with Earth Science, we still do exceed the county with our mastery rate. And the N at the bottom is our number, obviously not the state's number. The state is much higher, but just to give you a perspective on how many students are taking these Regents exams. This would be the number from the January and June 25 administrations. And if you want to see the breakdown, I do have that in the appendix as well.
She's anticipating you every turn.
Which one? Here we have participation in the elective Regents, so that would mean beyond the 5 required for the Regents diploma. And this is by cohort. So if you look at the far right, 24-25, so how many students in our 2021 cohort of 449 students participated in these Regents exams? So that would be beyond, we do offer a course, for example, of Foundations in Algebra 2 that students are not ending in a Regents exam. This would not include those students. These are only the Regents exam students. So you see that we have a very high participation rate in geometry. 92% of our kids took that Regents exam. 85% of our students took the Algebra 2. And then you see 75 and 49% for students who are taking those science Regents exams. We do have other options if students are interested in chemistry, but not to the level of the Regents. We do have non-Regents chemistry. We also have general physics that does not end in a Regents exam, as well as marine science and forensics to keep students in science for 4 years, even if they are not taking the Regents exam. This is also a new slide. So how are we providing access, opportunity, and support for our students? And that means sometimes they have additional support built in. For example, our mathematics courses, if you see Algebra 1 Plus, it has an additional 2 days of classes. So we're on a 6-day schedule. A typical class would be 4 meetings out of the 6-day cycle. If you see plus next to it, it's 6 meetings out of the 6-day cycle. That can really address skill deficits that students might have, help them really get the understanding and the foundation that they need. I can't emphasize this enough. If you are in Algebra 1 Plus and you are successful and you get what you need, you can go into geometry. You are not tracked to have to stay in the plus classes. It's really based on what the student needs to be successful, and that is really the criteria that we have here. So we'll look at a number of different data points, their prior performance in the build-up classes, the prerequisites, whether we're talking about at the middle school or the high school, and some of the, could be iReady, it could be a Regents exam, whatever they've taken, we're looking at that overall view of how a student has performed and what they need. In science, you see that we have a separate AIS, which would be different from the class. You wouldn't necessarily, and very likely wouldn't get your same teacher for these AIS classes, whereas in a plus class, it's built in, so you do have the same teacher for that continuous work. We have started with English plus classes for 9th grade and 10th grade. They're not reflected on here because the students in those classes have not yet taken the Regents. The English Regents is in 11th grade. So we are tracking that information to see how students who were in sophomore English plus last year perform in the Regents this year. Same thing with the 9th graders last year, 10th graders this year. When they're in 11th grade, how are they performing? What's working, what isn't working? You see that I only have June listed here, and that's with safety nets and appeals. So we do have students who would qualify for passing with a lower score based on their accommodations or their declassification document, and appeals, especially if you talk about our English language learners. So you see the number of students who are enrolled in a plus class or AIS, the number of students who passed in June, and that percentage of students who passed in June. So you can see where, I mean, some of the numbers are smaller than the others, and certainly that goes into account when you talk about the passing rate. But you can see where the students are experiencing success, and even looking at August, students may go into summer school if they didn't pass the course as well, or they may just do our Regents Review courses. That Algebra 1 Plus passing rate for students who did take again in August turns into 95%, passing rate. For Geometry Plus goes to a 78% passing rate. Algebra 2, because again, this is an elective Regents exam and wouldn't keep them from graduating, we didn't have additional students take that in the summer. Same thing, biology, we did not have additional students take that in the summer for a living environment. Global, the one student did not retake again. US history, 100% passing rate, and then English was pretty significant. So when you include the summer coursework and Regents Review, that turns into a 90% passing rate. So even if we didn't get them over that finish line in June, our goal is to encourage students to do whatever remediation they need in the summer and take it again as soon as possible. Because if you didn't pass it in June, waiting until January or the following June when you're not enrolled in the course in particular does not help you with the content. We do have a number of Regents preparedness supports, whether you're talking about for students with disabilities, for English language learners, and for general education students. So that is absolutely built in. We do not want kids walking in and taking that test again cold. And that would be included if a student just wanted to try again for a higher score. They're still eligible to participate in those.
Thank you. That's a lot. There's a lot of information there. But what we'll try to do in the next few slides is sort of make this bridge from all of the data to the action steps. We opened the presentation early on with the quote, "Every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets." So if you want different results, we do have to shift the system, and we have to address that. And we'll talk about that in a few moments. But, keep in mind the data tell the story. And then we have looked at certain types of data, mainly, assessment data. There are a lot of other data that tell the story of how our students are doing, their opportunity, achievement, participation in clubs, how they might be doing in their art, their theater classes, performances, number of students engaged in co-curricular activities. Those are all very important data points as well. And that's part of the full picture of a student. But certainly ignoring these data which speak to student achievement, we do that at our own peril as well as, to the, preventing students from achieving as much as they could. Whenever we look at the data, these insights, that's what we're using the data for, to provide insights, so we can figure out what our next steps are to help our students towards their academic, their personal excellence. We want to provide continual system-level decisions grounded in improvement for our students. We have one shared goal. We've seen this in other presentations. We want our students engaged, empowered, and growing towards success. So some of the system-level shifts that we're undertaking right now, and Dr. Baer has alluded to some of these already, certainly. We're preparing for new state graduation measures. The Regents examinations are not going away. They can still be used by students to fulfill requirements. They're just no longer going to be the requirement to demonstrate proficiency in certain levels. But as we prepare for the new state graduation measures, which we discussed last year with the Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations. We need to align our curriculum, our assessments, and our scheduling to this movement towards a single diploma type and competency-based pathways. And we have things in place that we'll be able to build off of. But certainly we'll need some curriculum writing. We're going to need to find time, space for department collaboration, and certainly ongoing professional development time. We do need to implement the financial literacy, the climate education requirements that New York State has announced. This may require a dedicated course. We might be able to embed it. We might, in existing courses, we might need to add some additional FTEs as we see how other districts are implementing these requirements and sharing some good practices that'll come clearer to what our needs will be. Certainly, either way, we'll need some curriculum writing. We'll need to look at some materials, books, other materials, possible science lab adjustments. So that's part of what we're thinking about. I think at the high school and working at the middle school in collaboration, these early warning systems, these transition supports, we have to continue working on those, that we are identifying, flagging students at risk who are falling behind, even before they require credit recovery or AIS services. That those transitions, not just from the middle school to the high school, but within each grade level. There is a transition going from 9th grade to 10th grade. That's important. The 10th graders going to 11th grade, and certainly into 12th grade and beyond. Those are all important transition periods. And we want to make sure that we've got our eyes on, continue to have our eyes on those areas. There's some instructional and student access shifts that we want to continue making. Dr. Bear, I think, spoke very eloquently about a number of the ways in which access to AP courses has been expanded, as well as our advanced courses. We want supportive on-ramps. Next month, we're going to talk about some of the additional on-ramps we're providing for our students. We don't want a student's pathway in, say, mathematics to be decided in 6th grade, and whether or not that student takes the 7th grade double accelerated course in order to take algebra in 8th grade. There have to be some other ways students can find a pathway when they're in the high school, and we're providing those. These structured pathways to prepare students for advanced coursework. We've got to strengthen our Regents level courses, our bridge programs, and perhaps additional sections, perhaps some summer programming, perhaps some teacher training, just alerting the board to some of those areas as we address this. One of my favorite groups of slides in this presentation is when you look at, more students taking APs, more AP exams being taken, and people, hey, what happens next with the passing rate? Most people will say, I bet the passing rate dips. That's not what my experience has been in my previous districts. Clearly, that's not what's happened in Schreiber. We saw it as we expanded access to the algebra course at the middle school. You can't get much higher than everyone 100% mastery, level 5. And every time you think, well, no, I don't think we can take on any more students. We got 60 more kids than a few years ago taking algebra, still a mastery rate, a huge increase in the number of students and the number of exams, and the passing rate on the APs goes up. Students never fail to surprise me in terms of what they can do, but I do think when you look at these numbers, it's surprising for other people. So this is why we try to showcase and highlight these numbers. Our IDW is the Instructional Data Warehouse. Using the Instructional Data Warehouse, this committee has heard me speak a lot about that in a lot of different contexts at all different levels. We continue to use these analyses, whether it's the gap reports, wrong answer analysis to guide our instruction. We leverage the data we have to improve our instruction. And a theme throughout the district the strengthening of our small group instruction, as well as our data-based interventions. We can figure out what works for kids. It's out there. There are best practices, and I think, within our district, you've heard me use the term pockets of excellence. We have that. We need to make this a more consistent umbrella of excellence at all levels. And that involves, PD, building teacher capacity, progress monitoring, and adapting our instruction. And for so many reasons, if we're teaching the same way now that we were teaching a few years ago, especially at the secondary level with what the students have access to in terms of technology, AI, if we're teaching the same way, we're not reaching our kids. We're simply not. So, once again, connecting our outcomes to our district priorities. We have our district priorities. They've been communicated to the board, to the community. So our results here and all of the next steps align with our commitment to engage, empower, and grow. These steps, these actions advance our priorities for student learning, professional growth, and of course, community well-being. These 4 bullet points: academic personal excellence through our rigorous coursework, expanded pathways, early interventions. We're deepening our professional learning through curriculum work, assessment literacy, and preparation for the new graduation measures. We're strengthening our culture of care and belonging by ensuring equitable access to advanced opportunities and supports, and using data to drive continuous improvement and align school goals with district priorities. I am not going to go through the appendix, but in the appendix, that's where we have, as Dr. Baer mentioned, all of our detailed results. But I want to thank Ms. Javelin as well as Dr. Baer for their work on this presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will study it. This will be our Friday night activity. We'll be reading through the rest of this. Thank you so
I
much.
didn't hear yes.
I'm reading it, I'm looking at it right now.
Friday night activity.
Right now.
It's like a glass of wine.
So thank you so much. I always pass it on to Rachel and Sandra for their questions and comments.
I have a comment, and then I'll let Sandra know if she has any comments, and I have a couple of questions that I can come back to, but first comment, I think you both said this, but I wanna kind of highlight it, this, it's really like a philosophy change, right? Of driving more kids into honors and AP, or smoothing the path for them to get there, I think is so important. Because when I think back to my high school career, right? Even though nobody was tracking anybody, we were kind of tracked in that there were very few AP offerings and honors. There weren't on-ramps and off-ramps. And I think this move that's happening in this district of making it a little less rarefied to take an AP or an honors course is really important. And I liked what you said, that, if everybody's getting 100%, we're kind of doing something wrong, right? Because every single kid in a class shouldn't be getting a 5, shouldn't be getting 100%. There's still value, and a lot of value for a kid who's gonna get a 4 on an AP exam. And often we've had conversations about the kids in the middle who get lost, or the kids who weren't identified early enough, the kids who were immature, and so they didn't look like students, and then they grow and they mature and they become very serious students. And I think that in terms of access for all of our subgroups, for the kids in the middle, that's really important, that the school philosophy and the district philosophy is is this kid capable of it? What supports does the child need to do it, rather than thinking there's this pool, these are the kids who could just do it on their own and they're good, they take AP exams, and the other kids take regular classes. So I really wanna thank you for that, because that seems really important to me, because these classes also prepare them for college, for life, right, for rigorous schoolwork.
I guarantee you, we have scores and scores of 10th graders who take one of those AP exams, usually AP World, would score a 3, and that would give them oh my goodness, I can do it. I can achieve and pass a college level class. And what that does for the rest of that student's high school career and beyond should not be understated. I mean, that's, and there's scores and scores. So, you know, a 3, that's an incredible passing score for some kids. Some kids might be disappointed, those that are always getting 5s, but yeah, we certainly have plenty of kids that should be able to achieve. And even a score of 2, when you're so close, that can serve as a motivator.
And I think there's the fact that there is room for understanding that a kid who gets a 3 is great. Like, hopefully we could approach, you know, full passing rate on everything, and I'm sure you're thinking about that and working on that already. But that a kid getting a 3 is still a success because that's teaching the kid what they can do, and that there's room for somebody who's taking AP World who thinks it's easy and sitting next to somebody who's taking AP World and thinks it's hard.
And I'll say, I don't want 100% passing rate though. Yes, it's
Because
a
then you
wonderful
miss
thing, because then we're missing a student who works really, really hard, develops that productive struggle, is getting so many life lessons and a really excellent classroom experience, who gets a 2. That's still really valuable to that student. So it's nice to say, I want every single kid to pass it, but there's value in getting a 2. 1 is where we look at, you know, where are we aligned? Is there an instructional issue, or did the student really, really struggle in the class, but loves the subject, was okay with maybe not performing their best on an AP exam, but really valued the experience. So that's where we kind of speak about, are we aligned? So students shouldn't be shocked to get a 1. If they're getting all A pluses and they get a 1, what are we talking about here? That would be a shock. So if a student is fine being in an AP class and fine with getting Cs, okay, they're really valuing what they're doing. Not every kid in an AP class or an honors class or any Regents class, not everyone's getting an A or an A plus.
I think what you were saying before is really important. The child who's sitting next to, who's taking an AP class and thinks this class is easy, could be sitting next to a child who thinks that the class is very hard. And that speaks to some of the instructional shifts that will have to come as we continue to expand access and opportunities. But you're absolutely right. It is a philosophy that if students are college bound, they should experience a college level course while they're in high school so that they're best prepared to take that step. So we have 90% of our kids going on to college. 86% went on to 4-year schools. So we know at least 86% of those students intend to earn a 4-year degree, and those that are going to 2-year schools, we're not sure, you know, if their intention is to earn a 2-year degree or to earn a 4-year degree. But be that as it may, we would like to see, ideally, the percentage of kids that are going on to study at the college or university level match the percentage of kids that are taking at least one AP course while they're in, while they're in high school. So you'll hear us talk a little bit more about that at the December program enhancement presentation. But you see, I think the point that Katie made is worth repeating about English language. In 2020, there were 38 students that took AP English language. In 24-25, there were 135 students who took that course, and the passing rate did not suffer as a result.
It may also shift a student who potentially doesn't think of themselves as college caliber. And put themselves in a box, or they let someone else put them in a box, and opening that prism a little bit, or I don't know the right word, aperture, is it? To help them think of themselves perhaps as a different student than they may have.
Well, the mindsets that we create amongst students that are incredibly important. You know, the beliefs that we help students to really solidify about themselves as learners is critical to what we do.
Well, and even outside of the classroom, we talk about students who may have limited access to do college visits. Maybe they are a first generation or potentially first generation in their family. So through our guidance department doing field trips to some of the most popular colleges and universities around, that includes not just a tour of the campus, but sitting down and having a meal in the cafeteria, which is so much of the experience when you're at school and you go to a dining hall. What does it mean to get the sweatshirt? So you're getting the swag like other kids at school. So how do you envision yourself there when it's not an experience that you maybe have heard about growing up or you have seen yourself there previously? So I think that is important inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And if you look at our post-secondary outcomes, we had 84% of our students last year attend four-year universities, or colleges, and 77% took one or more APs at some point in high school. So that's important. We still want to close that 77 to 84%, but we do have a large number of our students who are participating in college level coursework, and it helps to prepare them for that mindset Dr. Posse is talking about, that it is possible for them, they can do this.
We interrupted you.
Nope, that's it. I'm gonna leave it there and hand it over to Sandra, and we can always come back. I just wanted to highlight that, because I know that's what you're both thinking, but I think it's really crucial for a lot of students.
Okay, I'll try to be very brief. Just to clarify, you might have said it and I apologize, but one of my questions was on that post-secondary outcomes. Is there an exit interview? My specific question was for those that didn't attend a four-year program. Is there an exit interview asking specifically those students that if it was an opportunity access reasoning or a choice? Right,
So-
there's very specific, the military, right? So that's a very specific option, you know, many are like naval bound, which although that would be 4
We
years,
had a
but
large number of kids in last year's cohort
Yeah.
who opted for the military. We had a beautiful ceremony for the kids as well. So yes, we do exit interviews with Mr. Arini as our new director of guidance. We had just spoken, Dr. Posse asked me about exit interviews. And I said, this is a place that we can really do more to hear about their experience and what they're looking forward to next. He immediately got really excited and said, exit interviews are one of my favorite things. So I think we will, sorry, Mr. Arini, we'll have really great data from the upcoming classes to give more specific information. Yes, we do have some of that, but not statistically the same way that you're seeing here.
yeah. And I think that's just like an important part of the driver of this discussion that you guys were just doing, because it's one thing to assume that it's a choice or assume that it was just an opportunity, because it can be reversed on both ends. A kid can have the means and opportunity, but it's a choice to go military-wise. And the reverse, we might assume that they had the grades, but they didn't have the opportunity financially. So it just helps with some of the dialogue.
And we have some students who really make that choice and know that
Yeah.
continuing with education in the same institutional way is not for them.
Yeah.
So this, again, goes back into knowing our individual kids. Our counselors are doing that work with them all along for those 4 years, not just at the end, and finding out what the right path is, because a lot of this is a conversation with families. This isn't just, you know, your 17 or 18-year-old gets to make a decision on the entire rest of their life. What does that mean financially for the family if you're going on to a post-secondary institution? What does it mean if they're going into a vocational field or the military? So a lot of conversations.
I would imagine you have to dig even deeper too, because there may be students who think they're making a choice, but is it an
Yeah.
educated choice?
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have the full understanding of the choice you're making. And so it sounds like what you're describing is like making sure they really are.
And their families are informed, because it is a bigger process than just the students. And I would say this can start as early as 9th grade, when you're starting to do those interest surveys and inventories of like, what do you find interesting? What do you think you might want to do? Because it decides some classes you might pick. And you continue that in 10th grade, and you might be honing that in a little bit more as far as electives, because you have more time in your schedule. Certainly a junior planning meeting is the time where you're like, okay, what are you thinking? The family's involved in that conversation as well. Have you started really looking at, have you started, if you're college bound, looking at registering for some of those SAT, ACT exams? And that's where you're starting those really important conversations about what does it mean when you graduate from high school? What are your plans right now, and how do we help you get there?
The pass rate, I know for the AP exam specifically, I saw like a lot, obviously all your data on the 3 or more, the mastery level of it. The one thing that I'm not sure if it would help us to see, but the drop rate at the beginning. So just like if someone's dropping AP in general, and the reason I ask this is like, what does that look like by course? Is it reviewed by teacher? And not that necessarily like specific that we need that, but what does that tell us just about that specific program or, you know, amongst staff and really for us, like if you guys are doing this deep dive, that's one part of it where we're not seeing, right? So like when we talk about the students in the middle, one of my big questions that I had that I don't need an answer, just like overall, you know, one of my big things is like, why are they the middle, right? Is it the mastery level? Is it the mastery level they're getting on scores? Is it the course load, right? So yes, we have a great numbers of students taking an AP course, but how many are taking a rigorous course load? Who should be, right? Who can handle it? And for me, I think anyone can handle it, so I'll just throw that out there. But, you know, is our middle students taking 1 a year, where the next step is 2 a year, right? And this drop rate, is that affecting those middle students and why? So it's just one thing I didn't see data-wise in your 100 slides, is just that drop.
So what I can tell you is, I don't have it off the top of my head, but this is something we look at even from a master schedule standpoint, because there are FTE implications to this as well. So what I'm looking at are the number of course requests. Obviously, we have students who get scheduled out of a course, maybe it's a singleton and they have too many other singletons, a choice has to be made. So that's one data point of how can we maximize the students who are able to get into a class? We do that every single year. Then the next thing we look at are the numbers of kids who are enrolled overall and by section. So you guys get the over-under report. That's where all this information comes from. I have a spreadsheet with different snapshots from before schedules are released, after schedules are released, the day school starts, another week later, another week later. If you look at last year's, I was having it by the hour. I was going a little, listen, it's a little bit much. Well, it was before the school year started when we were trying to balance, because if you have a class, one class that's at 35 and you have another class that's at 17, well, if you have classes that are that high, can the kids really get the support they need? No. Balancing is really, really important because you want to make sure that you can maximize the attention. We noticed maybe my first year that we were having an issue, particularly with APUSH, that's AP US History, where we were having a large number of students drop. Again, that goes to FTEs because you need enough space for the kids to go somewhere. So what is happening that we're having this level of drops? That was something we addressed really early on. We don't have that now. We have kids really staying in AP US History, feeling the support that they need. That doesn't mean the drop rate is 0. But it means that kids are going into the class, being scheduled in, trying it, making that decision with their families, with their counselor, with their assistant principal, their teacher. And if they come out of that class, there's room to move into a Regents level course. So these are data points that we really do need to track, because if our classes are all at capacity, if they're all maxed out, we don't have the room for that movement, and we need to anticipate it, and we do that with trends over time. So is it an anomaly? Is it something that's happening every single year, and that decides when we have a bad section break, where we're going to put that FTE, because you only have so many humans. I don't care what school you work for, you only have so many human beings in classrooms.
But your question about, are we tracking drops at the beginning of the course, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then that'll trigger questions as appropriate. But the other question you asked was really important, which is like how many students are taking a rigorous course load. So one of the things that we tried to do by putting on here the slide about participation in elective Regents courses is that gives you a sense that, okay, 92% of our kids are taking geometry, but then 85% are taking Algebra 2. So is there a way for us to increase enrollment in Algebra 2? That gives us just another data point to look at. Similarly, in science, chemistry, we have 75% of kids taking chemistry. Now, there are lots of different AP Science offerings that kids might be taking 4 years of science, and it's not necessarily reflected in here. But
Like
those are the kinds of
99%
things.
of our students are taking 4 years of science.
Yeah, those are the kinds of things that we track to be able to assess, are kids taking a rigorous course load? It's also the reason that we're tracking how many kids are taking at least one AP course before they graduate high school. The other data point that's informative, I think, is the AIS and support class enrollment. Because if we want students to challenge themselves in some of these more challenging courses, then offering, for example, an Algebra 2 Plus class, and a Geometry Plus class, which are above the Regents requirements for graduation, but support kids in getting the Advanced Regents diploma, are critically important. So to be able to assess how many kids are enrolled and what's the success rate of those courses also give us really valuable data.
Can I piggyback off of that topic for a second? I often throw this bomb because I just can't help myself. Talking about the leap between a Regents experience and an AP experience. There is a giant, in my opinion, space there for, in the perfect world with the budget that we all dream of, in my estimation, there's honors courses that find those other students that are perhaps not ready for AP, but we are beyond Regents. So are those thoughts anywhere?
So what I can tell you is we're not looking at creating, I'm only going to say 2 levels and not special education remedial. I'm just going to say the Regents level and AP for, let's say, AP US History. So instead of adding a third one in the middle, we're really focused on that differentiation. So how are we providing that support for our AP students who, I'm sitting here and really struggling. This is a huge push for me to be able to be in the class next to Dr. Feeney, who could do this in his sleep with his eyes closed. How are we really supporting both? And at the same time, if you have a student in a Regents level course who may not feel that they're ready, or is a 3-season athlete, or has enough things outside of the school day that they say, I cannot commit to this because I've committed to a different class somewhere else with the extra time, they should still be challenged in their class. So it's not like we think our students should just be phoning in the coursework and have everything so easy. If a student is excelling, we want to keep pushing them and maximizing their potential. If a student is struggling, we want to really support them. Then you have the students in the middle who may struggle with something and excel with something else. Every single person needs to have their needs met in a classroom, and these are the differentiation conversations that we've been having, in addition to even the small group instruction.
Yeah, I just want to build on that for a second. Finding that just right class for a student is really, I think, very difficult to actually achieve, because what ends up happening, so the AP courses are defined by College Board. The Regents curriculum is defined by New York State. The honors curriculum is typically somewhere in the middle. So when you
By
have
our professionals.
and when you have too many different layers, what ends up happening is you end up having kids that could be pushing themselves in AP courses that are not pushing themselves in AP courses because there's this other option. And you have kids that might be better served in a Regents level course that are now in this honors curriculum that we've developed internally. So it's
Catch-22.
I believe, just to build on what Katie is saying, if there is an AP option, then that should be the option for advanced students. And what we need to do is help promote the instructional shifts so that the differentiation that's happening in those classrooms is true differentiation, and that the leap between the Regents course and the AP course is more of a step than a giant leap. That takes curriculum work. It takes it'll take some professional development as well, and it'll cause us to really look at our curriculum to see what in the AP courses can we do in Regents level courses to really advance the level of expectations and create a more solid foundation for kids. I think that's a better way to approach this than creating a third track in the middle, kind of sandwiched in the middle. That may have some unintended consequences of pulling kids who really could be very well served in advanced placement courses from a college board curriculum.
But it's a different way of looking at both levels, right? So I think traditionally, AP level is really looked at this narrow group of students to take it. We need to expand that, and that's done by making sure we're providing support within that AP level for kids so that they can stretch, right? We want to serve as trampolines to help them get to that level. The Regents, in many ways, is, that's a Regents level. That should not be dismissed like that. We need to strengthen our Regents so that it is stretched out. So there's less of a gap between your AP level and your Regents level. And that's permitting students who have traditionally been in that Regents level to be more prepared to challenge themselves at AP level work. And it provides more support for students who arrive at AP level work. But that Regents level, the strengthening of the Regents curriculum is crucial. How is that done? By making sure there's greater expansion to skills such as research, expanding research. So it's not just for the high level kids, but we have some sort of research opportunities for all of our students, focusing on the writing skills, the literacy skills, all of that work, which they've been working on at all levels. So, you create that middle one, you're going to weaken both ends, in my view. And my experience has been, the honors will bite away at AP enrollment and prevent students from getting that external college level experience.
I have a difference of opinion. I always
I felt it
have.
coming.
Well, I think
Because we lose local control of our higher caliber coursework when we give it away to AP. I have a big problem with that. I say it every year. I have not been convinced otherwise. Our professionals know what a high-quality instructional experience looks like. I hear what you're saying. I get the philosophy of it. I'd get rid, I'll say it.
For another day.
I would get rid of AP. I would make it all honors because we're being driven by something that is not Port Washington and its values.
I will
That's my
say, I
problem.
love looking at the college, at what our course offerings have been at the high school. The vast majority of course offerings that have been put in place over the last few years have been really elective offerings designed by teachers based on student interest. So nowhere should anyone think that, only AP, that's the only thing we're considering, not at all. There's a richness of offerings at the high school, so we have those. But for those other areas, we've got that external. Both can exist in one place. It's not an either or.
I trust you guys to be the leaders that make sure all of that happens. It's just a thing I have, it's a thing.
I think your issue is also where there is only one level.
Yeah, it's a
Since
gap.
I've had a
It's,
million conversations with you.
yeah, it's just my philosophy. It's
Yeah,
just
you've
gonna
shared
be
this
what it
before.
is. Yeah, it's,
Understood.
anything else?
Last-
And then we have the
yes.
community, of
And
course, as
Rachel.
well.
So I just have to make note, in the concluding kind of slides, as far as like next steps, what you guys are looking at, for me, some of it I'm like, how are you doing that? And obviously, we can't have 10 more slides, but it's a question for
We could
curriculum.
always have more slides.
We
I mean, I can give you 10 more
We
questions.
could.
Meanwhile, the
It's-
three of them are like, we cut 50.
Yeah, so it's really for curriculum of, I understand you have these all of these goals and how you're gonna do it. I think for us, it's just like, for the board, I'm always trying to understand, how do we measure that? Like, how do we understand what you're doing, keeps the district accountable on those goals? The easiest one is always gonna be graduation rate, but we've already said, you hit like, you hit the number, the Mecca 97, and those,
The Mecca is 100.
it's not possible, so the Mecca would be 99, I believe, right? Because that is reality, right? That's just reality. So if you share a district that's 100, please let me know. Is there a district that's
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
that have the programs that we have?
Yes.
Please send me an email with that. Not right now, no. So that's not even my question.
All posted.
So some of them, like refining early warning systems and transition supports, what does that look like? That's the deep dive that I'm just wondering.
Share something?
Sure.
But it's how this is done, right? And Dr. Bear and I had this reflection a couple days ago. We hold, and it started 3 years ago when we arrived, we have these data meetings. And
Yes.
we meet with our department supervisors up at the high school. And we were reflecting on the first round of these meetings. Who is this guy? And why is he coming in here asking me to show data? What is
That did
this
not
all
come from
about?
me.
No, not from her.
We know.
You're right, so, what do you mean data, what are these reports, right? And there was a lot of modeling, discussion, here's what you look at. The data, we're sort of about 2/3 the way through them now, or maybe halfway. It is incredible the difference in that shift. So we haven't necessarily measured, this is anecdotal, but there is a significant difference in how those department supervisors, the skills they have in terms of looking at data, using the instructional data warehouse, and at least projecting towards us the value in the data and the excitement in seeing the progress and highlighting the progress. It is night and day. So that's a system level shift, right? That's a cultural issue, and I've talked about the change in culture, and that's one way that, we're seeing it manifested.
And I would like to expand on that as well. So in addition to holding those data meetings, which would give you the data point right there as well, the shift that we've had when I have departmental supervisors who are asking me for professional development, particularly when it's related to funding or coverages or something else that would pull a teacher from a classroom, or it would be something else related to the school building that needs an approval, we go back to those conversations of, why do you want a BOCES professional developer to come in and work with I'll give you geometry as the example. We noticed that our scores in geometry were behind, and there were students, when I go through every single graduating senior, there were students who the only barrier was passing the geometry regents exam. They had all the coursework, they had all the other tests. I had the data points in a spreadsheet to tell you which kid, who, how many it was. And when we had to start making decisions about professional development money, it was geared toward geometry. We were looking at how to get kids to retake the exam. Again, that's the kid and the family decision. And now when we are talking about FTEs, and again, we had some bad breaks, where were we making the decision to put that FTE? Well, geometry needed more support. So we needed those lower numbers in the classrooms in geometry. So when you're talking about data points and what does that look like with the indicators, I could give you examples of all of those things happening. The other things would be the at-risk process that we talked about, the quarterly grade analyses. So if you wanted, APs meeting with students, counselors, and parents, we have all that information. It just, that gets a little muddy to put on a slide, but there's substance to back up everything that I have on those bullet points.
And I think it's not just like, I don't need, 10 slides to tell me what it is. It's more of, how's it measured for next year? So if this is brought to us next year, right? And this came out of our full board meeting of, you don't want to give a specific measurable number this year as you're deciding on what that data looks like, right? Which I hear that you're telling me to be patient, because I've been told that already by others.
I never said that.
I got the summary of that, which is fine, and I appreciate that. my big thing with data is it's pointless if we don't do something with it, right? It's great that we're looking at it, but it's pointless if nothing, and I'm not saying you're doing that. I by no means is saying yes, that you're doing that, because I can very much tell that you are, just even by like one conversation for the district, and I'm just saying for as a district, as trustees, it's hard as we go into, we're gonna have a budget meeting soon about the curriculum ask needs, right? To balance everything, it's just measurable goals that I think for a deeper dive is, again, I believe it's gonna be the same thing that you told us with the elementary, is give it a year until we decide on what those measurable goals look like, is my only question. And part of that, why I bring up like refined early warning systems, is I'm trying to understand where we're investing money, just like you explained that. Like one of the statistics for me that like shot out right away, is the Hispanic number of students taking the AP courses. And I just tried to do all the math. I said, if we take an assumption that all of our English language learners are Hispanic, which is false,
That's not true.
which is false. But if we made that assumption of all 8% are, you remove that number from the Hispanic community, 32% of our Hispanic students are taking an AP course based on your side, right? That's 435 students that are Hispanic for some reason not taking an AP course, right? So when we talk about moving the needle and improving these numbers, that's a group that is a large part of our district where what is that barrier, right? That's where I'm trying to understand, what do you mean by access opportunity and where does that look like? Not that I need to know the nitty gritty, I'm just trying to understand where are we investing time and money, just so I kind of understand when we talk about adding more students into the course, well, here's a great group of students, why are they not joining? Why are 435 Hispanic students not joining the course, right? Those are the reasons why I say, I'm not looking for the exact details of how you're gonna, flag students, but what students, what does it kind of look like? Just have a better understanding of where we, spending budget money.
Do you mind if I add something that I think
Yeah,
is on
100%.
theme? So I am always thinking about this word maximizing, right? And I saw
Yeah.
in Dr. Baer's slide, it said maximizing graduation rates. And I have a feeling, Mrs. Javelin, when you said, like, one of the goals is to have more students be successful in algebra and earth and space sciences, I have a feeling you're getting at the exact same concept, maximizing. And I think what you're getting at here partly is like, when you're talking about maximizing the graduation rate, it's pretty black and white. The number is easy to measure. When you're talking about maximizing having the right students be in the class that is the most challenging for them, or be on the path that is most challenging for them, or the path that gets them into the college that they should get into, or the trade that they should get into, that's harder to measure,
100%.
right? Because they could be having success in the path that they're in, but it doesn't necessarily tell us that they couldn't have done this path that would have gotten them like a little bit further.
This
And I
is the
think
middle
that's what you're getting
students,
at.
right?
It's not even just middle.
It's not just
It's
middle.
not even just middle.
Not just middle.
It's
all of our students.
It's all of them, because depending on how we're approaching things, there's always a possibility for a student
To do
who
a little
could
bit more.
do something a little more, a little different, a different college, a different path to post-secondary. I'm sure it keeps you both up at night, but
I haven't slept in years.
If I can, and I think these are important points to know, we don't go into all of this detail. I have no problems with picking a particular target number, because this isn't the first time or the first year we've been doing this. I think in Dr. Baer's presentation, this is the fourth year we've essentially given this presentation. It's been shifted and modified. We put all of the data in an appendix this year. We used to embed it within, but the essence of it is not dramatically unchanged. And if you go back, they're all posted on our website to the first presentation, you'll get a sense of the numbers we were working on when we look back at a 4 or 5 year previous history. The changes in the improvements are real, and they have not been made by happenstance. And, you know,
I think we have a quote for that.
it's been very targeted in terms of these interventions. Her whole slide about the interventions and how we address the graduation rate, it's a similar approach to opening up access. And a lot of this is done, you know, one-on-one, those conversations with the department supervisors who are meeting with their departments, and then the guidance counselors. That was a big push we had this year, recognizing those guidance counselors need to make sure they're communicating the same thing in terms of how accessible an AP course might be, and you know, what the target is and what the, you know, the ramp might look like. So those conversations, that's been a regular part, we refine it. And no, we don't list every detail, but it's, every step we take is geared towards opening up access for our students, all of the students. And that slide, which is one of my favorite slides, demographics, AP demographics, we didn't have that in that fanciness 4 years ago, but that did not look like that. It did not. You know, the demographics of AP kids did not match so much our overall demographics.
Which I fully appreciate. I'm just gonna push you for next year's slide to be even better than that one. That's the only reason I bring it up. Not that it's not a great slide and not a great improvement for the 4 years, it's what's the next step? There's no way we have time for the next one, but I really, I mean, I get maybe in the full, because this is gonna be presented in the full board meeting as well. The regents, the mastery levels of the regents and really how that looks. You know, I know it was brought up, a lot of the discussion on regents at policy, and I just think that this was a good chance for us to discuss it, but of course, time-wise. But the one thing that I'm, you know, trying to understand with the regents, exams, and really before, you know, we discuss anything regents-wise is just the blue ribbon, I'll just say it. The Blue Ribbon Commission, you know, I'm really trying to understand the nature of what the goal from the Blue Ribbon Commission was to remove it with the regents as far as a graduation requirement. And I heard someone's, I heard you say something about the regents not going anywhere, right? Which I understand. But I don't think the goal was from the Blue Ribbon Commission is that it's going anywhere. It's that it's not a barrier for certain students to graduate, right? So for me, what I'm trying to understand when it comes to the regents and this discussion, you know, future discussion of do no harm, whatnot, is the barrier for whom and whom is it hurting really? And I heard at some point someone, I think you said something about someone was not doing the regents, passing the regents, and that was hurting them, geometry regents maybe.
They were still, geometry, you're still graduating, it's the barrier to an advanced designation.
Yeah.
So when I look at where we've come, so we had exemptions for exams when we weren't offering them COVID, post-COVID. And then you talk about that special appeal option, which was the state's way to help students who had whatever it meant for them to have interrupted instruction, whether it was just the typical, they had, you know, virtual instruction, or they dropped off the map. Maybe they missed years of instruction. So they had the caveat of 50 to 64. If you passed the class, you would get essentially awarded a pass, but with that 50 to 64 special appeal. So now that that's going away, you need a 65. And so we do have some students, in particular our English language learners, who may be doing well in their coursework, but when you talk about the English Regents exam, you can only take it in English because it's the English exam, as opposed to Algebra 1. If you're Spanish speaking, you can order the exam in Spanish. So you're dealing more with the content and literacy in your native language as opposed to literacy in your second, third, fourth language. So by the nature of, I'm just giving the English exam Regents as the example, that is sometimes a barrier for our students who have taken the exam a number of times, and after 4 or 5 times are still not getting to a pass. There is an alternate route. So if you look at the seals of biliteracy or civic readiness, this is how I was talking, there are 2 different columns. You could get the points in the column for passing the Regents exam, But now that's not the only way that you can get past that requirement.
But
You
they're
would have
looking at
multiple
us like
options.
performance-based assessments, which
Yeah.
have not been developed yet as the alternative. Most likely portfolios.
So we are really late again. I just wanted to finish with the shift in philosophy and not boxing students into a particular lane or perception is so refreshing and exciting, and we're grateful to all of you in the leadership on that, and especially grateful to our teachers that have put in some real serious time and dedication to making these shifts, and seeing the progress on paper is really exciting. And as you say, these are actual students, these are not just numbers. I apologize to the community who is here, it's just way too late and we are going to have to pass on any questions. It's 12 o'clock.
But people can email us.
Yes, absolutely, please send emails to either us or the administration. Our next meeting is December 12th and, yes, December 12th. And why do I have, and it's secondary level programming and plans for the upcoming year. We look forward to seeing you there, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and thank you for joining us.
And the December 12th meeting begins at 11, correct?
Oh, correct, sorry about that, yes, 11 a.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
You didn't get that.